Hello, this is Brian with WG Design Group, and thank you for taking a look at this brief tutorial which is called Go Ahead, Pimp My Flyer. Now, the object of this tutorial is to take a look at some basic elements of good design that will make any flyer or promotional piece look impressive and become much more effective. Anybody can follow these techniques to make a great looking flyer. So let's start off by looking at some flyers and some of the problems with them. Here are some that I've just taken from the web. I'm using the theme of a crab feed because that's appropriate to the time of year I'm recording this. So here we have one. The text is a little bit hard to read in some places. I've blurred out some things to keep some privacy here. And there you have clip art that's fighting with each other for your attention. Here's another one. We've got these little bits of clip art all over the place, but look, annual is just as important as crab feed, and it's very hard to read. Coming down here, this one actually looks pretty nice straight off, but it's got a lot of problems. It's got this piece of clip art at the bottom, but it really looks more like a beach scene than a crab feed, and all the text is uppercase, which is always hard to read. Here we have another one that we've found, and it has a lot of text in a poor font, all fighting for your attention, and it's hard to see what this is about just looking at it. So let's look at some basic elements that we can add to make this look a lot better. Now, the first thing you need to decide when you're making a flyer is, are you going to use it with a bleed or without a bleed? And what a bleed is when the ink goes up to the edge of the page. Now, if you're printing on your own desktop printer, or maybe taking it to a copy shop like Kinko's, they cannot print to the edge of the paper. You have to leave this half-inch margin all around. This is a no bleed flyer. If you're taking it to commercial printing, then you can use a bleed, and a bleed really is more effective. But if you're up in quantities around 250 to 500, this is almost as cost effective as a no bleed option you would have at a copy shop. So always look for this. It just looks so much better if you can do it. I'll design one without a bleed just to show you that you can have something looking good without it. So let's move on. The next thing you need to do is create a grid. Now, most software packages will create a grid for you. These are non-printing, but they give you a guideline of where to place your text and graphics. Now, here we have a simple grid here. We have got 3 columns and 4 rows. So we would place our items within these. Now, you don't necessarily have to place items in each square like this, but you'll see what I mean as we move along. Now, for my flyer, I'm going to choose this grid, which has got 5 columns and 9 rows. I like this because 3, here we have 3, divides in 3 easily, and if any of you use photography, thirds are good. It's good to capture the eye. And I can split the columns into 3 and 2, either 2 here, 3 here, or vice versa. So let's take a look at some roughs so that we can see how we use these guides. Here I put the crab feed over on the left, in these guides, text in 2 columns here, and the bottom third for my graphic. I can use exactly the same grid here. Take the first column for the text, the main headline, the top third over here for my graphic, and if I've got a lot of text, I can put it down here. Now, here's another way I can use this grid. Up here in the top 2 rows, go across the entire page with the title. Then we have a third taken up with the main image and our text down below. So even though we're not putting everything in each square, we really are honoring the grid as we move along. The next thing that we want to do is choose a great object for our flyer. Rather than have a bunch of them, it's really better just to have one good one. You want to choose something that attracts attention, is relevant, and is not distracting. If you don't have images, there's plenty of stock photography houses out on the web. iStock Photo, PhotoSpin, Dreamstime, Big Stock Photo, royalty free 1, 2, 3, and many more. Go there, you can download the comps, check them out, and when you're ready to go, you can buy them. So if I look at this image here we have a plate of crab meat. Now, this is certainly relevant, but it's very hard to work out what this is. In fact, sometimes it looks a little bit more like one of the creatures from an alien movie that they've captured and cooked. Here's another one. It's certainly relevant because we've got a great crab here, but if you're not serving lobster or shrimp, don't use something like this because it's distracting and gives people the wrong idea. Over here, we have got a great picture of crabs, but there's a lot going on in the page. We've got the water and boats in the background, the rope here, not to mention that there's an awful lot of crabs here. So I would avoid something like this that's just got too much going on. You could choose clip art like this, but clip art really, in my opinion, devalues any flyer that you have. It just really doesn't look good, and it's more appropriate in a cartoon movie. So what I'm going to choose is a Dungeness crab that I've got from a stock photography house, and it's got no background. It is what they're serving at the crab feed. This is relevant, it's got good impact, and it looks good. But whatever you do, don't use a watermarked image. Go out, purchase it. You can purchase it just for a few dollars. If you use an image like this, it really does say, I've stolen the image. The next thing we're going to do is choose a color scheme. If you're dealing with corporate logos or corporate color schemes, obviously you would use that. But in a case like this, for a charity crab feed, you can just choose something yourself. Now, a good starting point is the image that you're going to use. So here I've taken the image, I've zoomed in on it, and I've just sampled a color from here. So I'm going to use this color. Now, we need to get other colors to go with this. You don't necessarily need a lot, but you can have some. Now, I use InDesign, and InDesign it comes with this little add-in called Cooler, and it lets me choose colors, and then it will develop a pattern for me. Here we have what's called the shades, so it gives me different shades of the same color. You can choose compound colors where it goes across the color wheel and chooses ones directly across and then some adjacent. Complementary colors straight across the color wheel, it chooses them for you. Here we have a triad where it's just going around 120 degrees and picking the colors from there. Now, if you use InDesign or any Adobe products, you can have this. But if you're not, you can just always go out in the web, and here's a free one that I came across today called colorschemedesigner.com. And you do exactly the same thing here. You choose a color, and then you can choose the triad, the complementary, the monochrome, whichever you wish, like that. And it gives you the color scheme, and then it'll give you the numbers for it. So that's a great way to choose your colors. Next up is fonts. And here we have the old maxim, keep it simple. Fonts need to be readable, appropriate, and not distracting. Here we have a script font that is just very hard to read. Don't use something like that. Use something plain. Some of the great fonts are Helvetica, Times. This is Garamond we're using here. They're easy to read. They've got a long history. People use them a lot, but there's a reason they're good fonts. So choose something easy to read for the body of your text. For your headline, you can choose something a little bit bolder. Now, the top one here is a script. We're not going to a wedding here, so this really isn't appropriate. Down here, we've got crab feed. It's kind of a rustic seafaring type of font, so we could get away with that. But personally, because of the way the letters go, they're not that easy to read. I want people to be able to see it from a distance and just grab them. So that's why I'm going to choose something like this. Now, this is a Helvetica. It's a bold condense, so it's just going to jump out at you for a couple of words. We don't want our fonts to be jumping at each other like this. Here you can see they're just fighting with each other. You don't know what the headline is, so you've got to give good emphasis, and you can use the size of your fonts to do that. So moving on, we're ready to take a look at the final. Here we've got our headline text, we've got our color scheme, and I just chose a monochromatic one, so they're really the same color as the base color, just different shades here. We've got our great graphic, and we've got the font we're going to use for text. So here you can see the finished flyer. Up here we've got the headline to get them in, little tagline, who's running this event. We've got the crab that is really grabbing us. His little foot there is leading us into the next important features that we're going to have: raffles and live auction and live music. Then you can get into the details. The tickets can be small. If the people want to come to this crab feed after you've drawn them in, they'll look down the flyer to see where the tickets are available. A nice map is certainly helpful with the date and time over here. This is a good simple flyer. Now notice this is a non-bleed flyer, and so we have the 1/2 inch all around, but I've effectively created a bleed within it by taking the crab off the edge here. So simple flyer, looks effective. But if we move to the next slide here, here you can see our grid, and this is the importance of the grid. See how everything fits into this grid. We have the headline up at the top in the first 2 rows right across the page, crabs taking 1/3 of the page up here, and down here at the bottom we've got the text. I split it in 2, so we've got the secondary important feature here taking up 3 rows over here. Down here we've got the map taking over 2 rows and all the columns at the bottom. If you do want to do it with a bleed, it would look something like this. You can see how this is a lot more effective. But it's important when you do a bleed, you can't just take these borders up to the edge. They have to extend beyond them, because this is going to get printed on a larger sheet of paper, and it's going to get trimmed down to size. So we've got the crop marks here, and all this ink goes off the 8.5 by 11 edge like this. So this is where it's going to get trimmed, here and here, but all this ink has to go off. So unless it's pure white, if it's the crab or whatever, it has to extend 1/8 of an inch off your page. And that's it. Again, my name's Brian with the WG Design Group. We've been doing graphic design for over 20 years now, so go ahead, check us out at our website, wgdesigngroup.com, or on Facebook at facebook.com/WGDesignGroup. I hope this really helps you put together your flyer. And if you need some help printing it afterwards, we've got great internet printing prices on our online site, and you're going to have a real person at the end of the phone, unlike a lot of other places. Thanks for listening.